man. How do you go, sir? Thank you.
The Appropriation Act 2025. Introduction and first reading. The Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I rise to move that the bill entitled the Appropriation Act 2025 being an act to authorize expenditures from the Consolidated Revenue Fund for the services of Sierra Leone for 2025 be read the first time. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the repeated external shocks and global economic uncertainty in recent years adversely affected domestic economic performance and eroded the living conditions of our people. In response, the government formulated and implemented prudent macroeconomic policies in 2023 and 2024 to mitigate the impact of the shocks and correct policy slippages. The fiscal consolidation stance, combined with proactive monetary policy, has begun to bear fruits. Economic recovery remains resilient.
Leader of government business.
The fiscal and trade deficits are narrowing. Inflation is decelerating, and the Leone has been relatively stable, with positive implications for improved living conditions. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, in addition to making progress in restoring economic stability, we also achieved the following. One, on the basis of prudent management of the economy in the last 22 months and our proposed reforms over the next 3 years, the Board of the International Monetary Fund approved a new economic and financial program supported under the Extended Credit Facility with expected disbursement of about $253 million over the next 3 years. Two, the approval of the new program has paved the way for the negotiation of another program under the Resilient Sustainability Facility, which will also lead to the disbursement of between $207 million to $415 million to support macroeconomic management and address climate-related risk. Three, on the back of improvements in social and economic performance and governance, government signed the Millennium Challenge Cooperation Compact Agreement with the government of the United States for $480 million to support the energy sector. For government, mobilized $800 million in pledges from development partners, including OPEC Fund for International Development, Arab Bank for Economic Development in Africa, Badia, Islamic Development Bank, ISDB, the International Fund for Agriculture, IFAD, the Qatar Fund for Development, and Africa 50 at the Investment Roundtable for Sierra Leone in Vienna, Austria, in support of our Feed Salon program and investments in renewable energy. These pledges have begun to materialize. Fourth, the European Union has resumed budget support operations with expected disbursement of €90 million between 2024 to 2027. Under the Feed Salon program, we have reduced the importation of basic food items, including 16% reduction in rice imports, 34% decrease in onion imports, 13% reduction in chicken imports, and 25% decrease in egg imports. 7, distributed machinery, including 200 rice mills, 142 rice threshers, 144 combined harvesters, and 3 landing crafts to farmers. We've distributed agricultural input, including 20 metric tons of foundation seeds to certified seed growers, and supplied 4 million cocoa seedlings and 1,000 plantain suckers to farmers. We facilitated the cultivation of 23,438 hectares of land and rehabilitated 1,950 acres of inland valley swamp across the country. We constructed 200 kilometers of feeder roads and 4 rural bridges in Kailan, Karenebont, and Pujan districts to enhance connectivity and market access. The Bank of Sierra Leone launched a 10 million agricultural credit facility with low interest rates for rice, onion, and poultry farmers, and the government mobilized an additional 7.9 million through the World Bank-funded Food Systems Resilience Project for rice, cassava, and livestock value chains. We launched the Sierra Leone Access to Finance project with support from the EU and United Nations Development Program, totaling $10 million to provide interest-free loans and insurance products to protect farmers against climate risks, among others. In addition, the Islamic Development Bank provided $2 million for an interest-free loan scheme for agribusiness in the rice value chain. We have done substantial investment in health infrastructure, such as construction of the Port Loko Emergency Hospital, Julius Maada-Bio Pediatric Center of Excellence in Freetown, Waterloo, and Jojima Hospital in Kailao. We also rolled out school feeding programs covering 2,173 primary schools and primary schools benefiting 553 to 37,000 children, and about 50% of total beneficiaries are girls. We provided emergency cash transfer to 43,000 households. The government also launched construction of 148.5 megawatts Western area power generation following ratification of the power purchase agreement by this noble House. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, will also install 100 mini-grids in various chiefdoms across the country and establish the public health agency to coordinate prevention, detection, and rapid response to health threats. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, objectives of the 2025 budget. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the 2025 budget will seek to consolidate these gains and prioritize programs and policies that will foster inclusion, economic resilience, as well as improve the quality of lives of the people of Sierra Leone, hence the theme of the budget, improving the well-being and quality of life of the Sierra Leoneans. This will require the continued implementation of prudent fiscal and monetary policy to safeguard macroeconomic stability. It is also imperative to undertake sectoral and structural reforms to promote sustainable and inclusive growth and enhance the living standards of Sierra Leoneans. Speaker, honorable members, in this context, the objectives of the 2025 budget are the following. 1, continue with efforts to further reduce inflation, stabilize the exchange rates to enhance household income, improve purchasing power and standard of living of our people, to prudently manage public finances to create fiscal space for investment in social and economic sectors, support the Feed Salon initiative to boost agricultural productivity and food security, sustain investment in human capital development to improve productivity and quality of workforce, continue to invest in infrastructure, technology, and innovation to boost productivity and growth potential of the economy, and deepen and broaden social protection programs to support the poor and vulnerable groups in our society, thereby ensuring that social and economic inclusion. We'll improve the business environment to promote growth and create job opportunities. We'll also support activities that promote a greener environment and address climate change and risk, and strengthen the public administration for effective and efficient public service delivery and good governance. So, Speaker, honorable members, before elaborating on the policies to achieve these objectives, please permit me to update this noble House on the macroeconomic and budgetary performance in this year 2024. Macroeconomic development in 2024. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the Statistics Sierra Leone, with support from the IMF, has rebased the country's gross domestic product, GDP, with a base year revised from 2006 to 2018. The rebased GDP shows that our economy is bigger than we had previously estimated. The size of the economy, of the Sierra Leone economy, has increased from about $4 billion to $8 billion with per capita GDP increasing from $492 to $857. This is primarily driven by improved measurement of agricultural and service sector, as well as increased coverage of informal activities across all sectors. The rebased GDP shows changes in structure of the economy, with the share of agriculture declining to 34% from 60%. The service sector is now the largest sector, accounting for 43% of the GDP. The share of industry has also increased threefold from 7% to 21%. The macroeconomic implication of rebased GDP are that the debt to GDP ratio has dropped from 94% to 54% in 2022 and further down to 53.4% in 2023. Total domestic revenue to GDP ratio declined from 12% to 7.2% in 2022. It increased to 7.9% of GDP in 2023. This lower ratio indicates that there is room to improve on domestic revenue mobilization. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the rebased GDP also shows that the economy is more resilient than we envisaged. The economy grew by 5.7% in 2023, after growing by 5.3% in 2022. The economy continues to demonstrate resilience in 2024 and is projected to grow by at least 4%. Increased agricultural and mining activities and recovery of the service sector, combined with declining inflation and stable exchange rates, are expected to boost growth in 2024. High-frequency economic indicators for the first half of the year, including improvements in composite index of economic activity, business sentiment, growth in credit to the private sector, and increased exports, indicate that the economy is on track to attain the projected growth rate for 2024. Inflationary pressure, which persisted in recent years, continued to ease in 2024, declining from the historic peak of 54.5% in October 2023 to 20.2% in September 2024. As tight monetary policy, macroeconomic policy take hold, global prices for food and energy softened, and exchange rates stabilized, combined with increased domestic food production. The trade balance improved in the first half of 2024, narrowing to 248 million from 286 million in the corresponding period in 2023, on the back of strong growth in iron ore exports. The total merchandise exports increased by 18% to 806 million in the first half of 2024, from 682 million recorded in the same period in 2023. Mineral exports, which account for 88.2% of total export receipts, increased by 17% to 711 million, with iron ore exports increasing by 21% to 490 million in the first half of the year. The value of total merchandise imports increased by 8.8% to 1.1 billion in the first half of 2024, from 968 million in the corresponding period 2023. Food imports declined by 12% to 197 million. Rice and petroleum import accounted for $72.9 million and $260 million respectively. Gross international reserves of the Bank of Sierra Leone declined to 2.2 months of import cover at the end of June, or 2.6 months of import cover at the end of December 2023, driven mainly by increased debt service payments. Speaker, honorable members, the Leone has been stable, relatively stable since the second half of 2023, and appreciated by 1.2% between January to September 2024. The relative stability of the exchange rate reflects improvements in the trade balance, decline in inflation, and tight monetary policy stance of the Bank of Sierra Leone. The Leone will continue to be stable on account of expected disbursements of budgetary support, balance of payment, and project support from development partners, as well as ongoing support and efforts to enforce the repatriation of export receipts. The stock of our external debt stood at 1.9 billion, and domestic debt 24.5 billion, about 1 billion respectively at the end of June 2024. Budgetary performance in 2024. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, total domestic revenue collected during January to June 2024 amounted to 7.5 billion, 4.5% of GDP, exceeding the target by 386.4 million. Of this amount, income tax amounted to 2.7 billion, goods and services tax 1.2 billion, customs and excise duties 1.7 billion, and mining royalties and licenses amounted to 567 million. The improved performance in revenue collection is attributed to the dividend payment, continued implementation of the Finance Act, 2023 and 2024, and robust implementation of revenue administration measures, including strengthening compliance. Domestic revenue are projected to amount to 14.7 billion, 8.9% of GDP in 2024. The grants received from development partners amounted to 1.3 billion, comprising wholly project grants. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, total expenditure and net lending for the first half of 2024 amounted to 11.8 billion, 7.2% of GDP, compared to the original budget of 11.3 billion new Leones. Recurrent expenditure amounted to 8.9 billion, 5.4% of GDP, falling below the end June targets amount of by 379 million new Leones, despite the overruns in subsidies and transfer. The overspending on subsidies and transfers was driven mainly by higher than budgeted transfers to ETSA to facilitate payment of arrears to IPPs, independent power providers. Wages and salaries and interest payments were lower than their respective targeted amounts. Capital expenditures and net lending for the first half of 2024 amounted to 2.9 billion, 1.8% of GDP, which was above the target amount by 141 million new Leones due to higher than projected or expected disbursement of project loans and grants. Domestic funded capital expenditures amounted to 1.1 billion, which is 0.6% of GDP, about 337 million below the targeted amount. Total expenditure and net lending are projected to amount to 26.6 billion new Leones, which is 16% of GDP for the whole year of 2024. The overall budget deficit, including grants, narrowed to 1.8% of GDP in the first half of 2024 and was broadly on target. The primary balance deficit is estimated at 0.3% of GDP, and the deficit was financed mainly by borrowing from the domestic banking system. The medium-term prospects and risks. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the Sierra Leone economy is projected to remain resilient in the medium term. Growth is projected to reach 4.5% in 2025, an average 4.7% in 2026 and 2027, driven primarily by strong activities in the economic environment.
Mr. Speaker, honorable members, it's past 12. I move that SO5 to be suspended for the business of the House to continue.
Any seconder?
I so second.
All those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Proceed.
Inflation is projected to ease to single digits over the medium term as macroeconomic policies continue to tighten and global prices of food and fuel decline. Inflation is projected to fall to 14.9% in 2025 and further ease to single digits in 2027. The external current account deficit, including official grants, is projected to narrow in the medium term from 5.3% of GDP in 2023 to 4% of GDP in 2024 and further down to 3.4% of GDP in 2027, reflecting the improvement in the trade balance and increase in official transfers. Gross international reserves of the Bank of Sierra Leone are programmed to increase to 3 months of import cover over the medium term. The nominal exchange rate between the Leone and internationally traded currencies, including the United States dollar, will be determined by the difference between inflation in Sierra Leone and that of our trading partners. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, there are, however, significant downside risks to this outlook. These include a resurgence in global food and fuel prices, fall in iron ore prices, spillovers from ongoing global economic fragmentation, the escalation of war in Ukraine, deterioration of security situation in the Middle East, and declining international donor support. Strategies for achieving the objectives of the 2025 budget. A. Reducing inflation and rebuilding foreign exchange buffers. Speaker, honorable members, even though the inflation is trending downwards, it is still above medium-term objective of a single digit and therefore continues to weaken the purchasing power of our people. Government will therefore continue with ongoing efforts to further reduce inflation. In particular, the Bank of Sierra Leone will strengthen its capacity and liquidity management operations to contain monetary supply growth to levels consistent with inflation objectives. The Ministry of Finance will complement the Bank of Sierra Leone's monetary policy stance by consolidating fiscal public finances to reduce the budget deficit and curtail central bank financing. The implementation of these measures is expected to lower inflationary pressures and support the rebuilding of foreign exchange buffers. In addition, government will invest in food production through feed saloon programs to increase food supplies and lower food inflation. These in turn will enhance the purchasing power of households and improve their living conditions. Speaker, honorable members, the exchange rate of the Leone to the US dollar and other convertible currencies will remain market determined to ensure the adjustment of the economy to external shocks. Beyond the implementation of prudent macroeconomic policies to stabilize the exchange rate, the government will also pursue policies that will support the production of exportable and import substitutable goods to earn and save foreign exchange respectively. Government will continue to enforce the requirements for the repatriation of export proceeds. Furthermore, government will continue to mobilize external development finance in the form of grants and concessional loans to boost our foreign reserves and stabilize the value of the Leone. The Bank of Sierra Leone will also continue to improve the operations of the foreign exchange market through implementation of reforms and removal of any remaining restrictions. Bank of Sierra Leone commits to undertake reforms to further strengthen the resilience, prevent systemic risk, and ensure that the banking system supports the stability and growth of the economy. Managing public finance to create fiscal space. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, limited fiscal space has been the constraining factor for adequate investments in the social sector and infrastructure necessary for promoting sustainable and inclusive growth. This is mainly due to the mismatch between domestic revenue and government expenditures, which has resulted in higher budget deficits and debt levels. The high debt service payments are consuming most of our domestic revenue collected, thereby crowding out spending on priority areas such as education, health, agricultural infrastructure, and social protection. Speaker, honorable members, there is therefore the need to build fiscal buffers to make the economy more resilient to future shocks and to create the fiscal space that are needed for investments in infrastructure and other priority programs. This requires a mix of revenue mobilization and expenditure management measures to ensure fiscal and debt sustainability. Our revenue mobilization measures, domestic revenue mobilization measures. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the implementation of the measures to improve domestic revenue is guided by our medium-term revenue strategy 2023-2027. The MTRS is a high-level 5-year strategic document that contains tax policies and revenue administration measures. The government will therefore continue to implement these measures over the medium term. Several of the tax policy measures in the MTRS were front-loaded in the Finance Act 2023 and 2024, and most of these are being implemented. The focus in 2025 will be to broaden the tax base and strengthen tax compliance. In this context, government will implement the following tax measures in 2025. Complete the implementation of outstanding measures in 2023 and 2024. Finance acts, including configuring excise duties on imports, alcohol, beverages, cigarettes, and other accessible goods in Articuda, and the minimum alternate tax in the integrated tax administration system. 2, will amend the Income Tax Act 2000. 3, will sustain the implementation of revised full pass-through petroleum pricing formula. 4, will review sectoral investment agreements with a view to introducing sunset clauses for the introduction to reduce corporate tax rates concessions granted to existing businesses beginning 2025. Cease the practice of granting reduced corporate income tax rates for all new investments and reduce withholding tax rates for all suppliers. Continue to rationalize duty and tax exemptions by implementing duty and tax exemption tax 2023. Effective 2025, will enforce the full implementation of the Extractive Industry Revenue Act 2018 and avoid negotiating new fiscal terms for mining projects outside the EIRA parameters. 8, will implement a safe harbor framework for establishing the prices of all minerals beginning with iron ore in 2025. We'll implement an ad valorem export duty on export value of timber and timber products in addition to the current fixed charges, which will be retained as a minimum, and introduce royalty on the export of dimension stones, which had long been exported as samples with no revenue accruing to the government. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, to strengthen tax compliance, the National Revenue Authority will implement the following tax administration measures. One, continue to carry out tax audits for high-risk taxpayers, including in the extractive industries, manufacturing, and telecom sector. Undertake data matching to expand the tax base through identification of unregistered businesses and underdeclared tax revenues. We finalize and implement the compliance improvement plans for medium and large taxpayers as well as high net worth individuals. Fully operationalize the electronic single window to reduce leakages and evaluation while fast-tracking the clearance of processes at the customs. And operationalize taxpayer service centers established in blocks in Western area to support and improve compliance of small medium taxpayers. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the Customs Service Department of NRA has the potential to contribute a higher proportion of domestic revenue than we are currently collecting. Government will establish a revenue task force at Customs. The short-term focus will be on increasing the collection of customs duties and taxes. This task force will focus on the port of Freetown and will be led by a dedicated management team. It will include the risk management and post-clearance audit unit, along with a specialist team of customs officers to conduct inspections and documents check at the port. Additional support will be provided by a dedicated intelligence team. Innovative financing, state participation in the mining sector. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, you will recall that this honorable House ratified the incorporation of the Sierra Leone Mines and Mineral Development Management Corporation and its wholly owned project company, the Mineral Wealth Fund Sierra Leone Limited. Following ratification, this Parliament allocated the Tonkolili North Kasafoni mine to the MMDMC on the 29th of August 2024. Since then, government entered into strategic partnership with China Overseas Engineering Company Limited, (COVEC), an entity under state-owned China Railway Group. As a major initiative under the strategic partnership, the Mineral Wealth Fund and COVEC will lead the Tonkolili Kasafoni mine development through the framework agreement signed on the 4th of September 2024. This agreement effectively leverages allocated assets to maximize economic potential. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, a key element of this collaboration is the creation of a mining joint venture in which government retains significant equity and benefit from the production sharing model. The proceeds from this venture will fund the rail expansion and construction of a new maritime export facility. This infrastructure project will also increase export capacity, boost domestic revenue, and stimulate broader economic growth. By lowering transport costs and enhancing exports infrastructure, Sierra Leone is positioned to further solidify its standing in the global iron ore market. Moreover, government will benefit from increased treasury contributions through transportation services and progressive production sharing model for mining activities that adjust returns based on iron ore prices, optimizing revenue while ensuring project viability. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, furthermore, the strategic partnership is structured on a non-recourse basis to the national budget, ensuring that the Sierra Leone financial obligations remain unencumbered by the project risk. All assets and liability are confined within the Mineral Wealth Fund, which operates as a limited liability company under the corporate laws of Sierra Leone. This arrangement safeguards national finances and limits government exposure to potential liabilities while ensuring that the government can benefit not only from this partnership, but also from the similar collaborations and, more importantly, from the Mineral Wealth Fund itself. This strategic partnership marks a significant advancement towards Sierra Leone modernization, especially establishing the foundation for stable economic growth and prosperity. Government will collaborate with our development partners to strengthen the governance framework of MMDMC and the Mineral Wealth Fund. Revenue mobilization at local government level. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, consistent with the fiscal strategy statement, government will continue to implement reforms aimed at enhancing revenue mobilization at the local level to reduce over-reliance on central government transfers for local services. To this end, government will develop the revenue mobilization strategy for the remaining local councils. These strategies will, among other things, identify and incorporate policies and administrative reforms for the effective administration of various revenue streams. We will roll out the upgraded web-based property tax system to other city councils to capture more properties and broaden the tax base, and continue building the capacity of local councils to enhance effective financial management at the local level. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, a new fiscal decentralization policy and implementation strategy has been developed and adopted by the Interministerial Council on Decentralization. This policy, among other things, profiles innovative and sustainable financing strategies for local development. Expenditure management measures. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, in addition to identifying the mobilization of domestic revenue, similar effort must be devoted to the prudent management of government expenditures in order to create fiscal space to spend on the priorities defined in the National Development Plan. In this regard, there is need to effectively manage the government wage bill, improve budget planning and execution, including domestic capital budget, strengthening cash management and public procurement. Managing the wage bill, government wage bill. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the government wage bill takes up to, on an average, 45% of domestic revenue. On current trends, the wage bill will become unsustainable and keep crowding out priority spending. To ensure sustainability of the wage bill and build on the ongoing reforms, the government has prepared the medium-term wage bill management strategy. The key objective of the strategy include the following: to continue the implementation of the ongoing reforms to build on gains made in improving the transparency and reliability of the wage bill. Improve the sustainability of the wage bill by reducing the share of the wage bill to the domestic revenue to not more than 35% or not more than 4 percentage points of GDP. Improve the credibility of the wage bill by minimizing the variance between the budgeted and the actual wage bill, and improve the predictability of the wage bill. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, in line with the short-term measures proposed in the strategy, government will pursue the following actions in 2025. Institutionalize separate annual payroll budget discussions for all MDAs. This is an opportunity for MDAs to present their payroll plan to the Ministry of Finance, particularly on recruitment, promotion, retirement, and salary adjustments. The Ministry of Finance will use this information to allocate realistic budget to MDAs within their available resource envelope. We'll institutionalize workforce payroll planning, which entails the prescription of recruitment quotas for the various categories of payroll, taking into consideration the available fiscal space, and this will reduce in-year requests from MDAs for recruitment. We'll institute a moratorium on salary adjustments to all subvented agencies for 2025, considering that the Wages and Compensation Commission is now operational to address wage disparity issues. We'll adopt the policy of not operationalizing new established agencies during the year, and the recruitment of staff for new agencies should align with the budget planning process. We constitute the Payroll Steering Committee. This committee will lead the monitoring of the implementation of the reforms contained in the medium-term wage bill management strategy. We'll set up a wage bill forecasting working group. This group will also be responsible for producing quarterly payroll forecasts that will support the leadership of the Ministry of Finance to take timely decisions in managing the payroll budget effectively, and develop a data warehouse which brings all data related to payroll to one place, including foreign missions, pensions, and national registration data to improve analysis and monitoring the wage bill. Improving budget planning and execution. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, with technical assistance from the IMF, government is piloting baseline budgeting for 2025 budget planning process to ensure the issuance of realistic medium-term expenditure ceilings and avoid under or over budgeting by NDAs. A baseline budget shows the impact of existing programs and projects for the upcoming financial year. Shows the impact of existing programs and projects for upcoming year. So baselines will include ongoing programs and projects and new ones which have been approved by the competent authority. Baseline budgeting therefore ensures accurate costing of ongoing and new activities, and the results of this baseline budgeting are compared to expenditure ceilings to determine the available fiscal space. So, Speaker, honorable members, a total of 11 pilots MDAs were trained in baseline budgeting, and these MDAs are the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, Ministry of Basic and Senior Secondary Education, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Defense, Sierra Leone Police, the Sierra Leone Correctional Services, Sierra Leone Roads Authority, the Ministry of Energy, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Planning and Economic Development, and the Audit Service Sierra Leone. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, consistent with ongoing efforts to build resilience to climate risk, the Ministry of Finance will institutionalize climate budget tagging. The Ministry of Finance is seeking technical assistance from development partners to integrate climate budgeting into the budget process. Ministerial Directive on Expenditure Control. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, As government continues to consolidate our fiscal and monetary policy gains over the years, it is important for MDAs to adhere to the appropriation bill approved by this noble House. When actual budget outcomes significantly vary from the approved budget, it brings considerable challenge to the budget execution and undermines the credibility of the budget. To ensure the budget approved by this noble House is effectively implemented, Cabinet has approved a ministerial directive on expenditure management and control, which stipulates that with effect from January 1, 2025, budgetary agencies should refrain from making commitments that exceed their approved annual and multi-year budgets. And 2, budgetary agencies should fully adhere to Section 55(1) and 2, Section 56(1) to 7, Section 61 and 2 of the PFM Act 2016, and Section 25 and 30 of the PFM Regulation 2018 when executing the approved annual budget. Consequently, on the basis of this ministerial directive approved by Cabinet, the Ministry of Finance will reject spending requests from MDAs that are beyond their allocations approved by Parliament. Strengthening cash management. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, cash management is being strengthened with technical assistance from the IMF to improve budget execution and avoid the accumulation of arrears. Through the technical assistance, a new cash plan structure, cash forecasting guideline, and cash forecasting templates have been developed for key stakeholders, including the Ministry of Finance, NRA, and the Accountant General's Department for the provision of fiscal data. These tools are used to produce and update cash forecasts to inform the decisions and recommendations of the Expanded Cash and Debt Management Committee on budget execution. Going forward, cash forecasting and data submission guidelines and standard templates will be rolled out for the submission of data by MDAs as part of the bottom-up cash forecasting process. A training will be organized for MDAs on cash forecasting. Improving management of the capital budget. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, inefficiencies in the management of our domestic funded capital budget have led to underfunding and cost overruns during project implementation. As part of the efforts to address these challenges, the Ministry of Planning and Economic Development undertook a comprehensive review and rationalization of the public investment program to remove projects that are no longer considered viable within the limited fiscal space. Mr. Speaker, honorable member, the Ministry will also ensure that henceforth all projects are subjected to economic and financial appraisals before inclusion in the public investment program. The decision to include projects in the budget will be made by the Ministerial Investment Committee as established by the Pre-Investment Manual and the Public Investment Management Policy. Government will also establish a technical budget working group to support Ministerial Investment Committee. Capital projects that are long-standing or have gone through variations exceeding the regulatory threshold of 25% of the original cost will require reappraisal and reselection. In this regard, clear criteria for the prioritization and selection of projects have been developed. These will also cover climate-related criteria to not only assess the impact of projects on climate changes, but also the vulnerability of the infrastructure to climate-related risk. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, considering the substantial share of the road sector in the capital budget, the Ministry of Planning and Economic Development has also prepared a comprehensive database of all road projects to guide the prioritization of projects in the sector. The road database is published as an annex to this budget, and the Ministry of Planning and Economic Development will create a centralized database of all projects, including public-private partnership, state-owned enterprises. The project database will contain multi-year contracts and commitments and will be managed through the Public Investment Management Information Systems. Improving procurement, public procurement. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, government undertook several reforms in public procurement in 2023, including publishing online tender announcements and contract award information for Ministry of Health, Education, Energy and Works, and Public Assets. This is in compliance with the open contract data standards aimed at increasing transparency in the public procurement processes and contracting. It allows deeper analysis of procurement data by a wide range of users, and the OCDS increased disclosure and participation in all stages of public contracting. In addition, the National Public Procurement Authority reviewed the Public Procurement Act 2016 to include environmentally friendly procurement. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the implementation of the electronic government procurement system is a key component of the government's ongoing public financial management reform. The EGP will enhance transparency and accountability, increase competition, improve cost effectiveness, and minimize corruption in public procurement. Government in 2024 developed a comprehensive policy framework and strategy and business process reengineering guidelines to support the successful rollout and operationalization of the EGP in 2025. Reducing energy subsidies. Speaker, honorary members, energy subsidies, most of which is transferred to EDSA for payments to independent power providers, continue to pose a major risk, fiscal risk to the budget. Direct subsidies to EDSA increased from 730 million in 2022 to 843 million in 2025. New loans. Energy subsidies are projected at 1.3 billion new loans in 2024. Government is committed to reducing EDSA subsidy and transfers by improving EDSA's operational and financial performance. To this end, government is implementing the following. One, installing smart meters to reduce technical and commercial losses of EDSA and strengthen its operational performance. By end December 2024, government has installed and commissioned 1,250 smart meters for high-end customers and at the secondary substations. With support from the World Bank, government will procure and install 3,000 additional smart meters by the end of June 2025. This initiative aims to reduce electricity theft and boost revenue collection by ensuring accurate and real-time billing for customers. We have granted concession of EDSA's operations to a private sector. That's what we'll do. This action is expected to bring in much-needed expertise, operational efficiency, and capital investment, thereby reducing the need for government subsidies. We'll implement a collection account managed by an independent fiduciary agent to ensure a clear and transparent waterfall mechanism for the utilization of EDSA revenues. This measure will enhance the financial discipline and accountability within the organization. With technical assistance from the World Bank, we'll develop a time-bound strategy to minimize EDSA dependence on expensive fossil fuel power generation, which will include negotiating more favorable terms in prospective agreements with IPPs. This will also be achieved through increased investment in renewable energy projects and a gradual transition to more sustainable and cost-effective energy solutions, and prepare a settlement plan to clear all MDA areas to EDSA. Speaker, honorable members, the implementation of these measures will also free up fiscal space for spending on social programs and allow government to restore the social tariff ban targeted at the poorest residential customers that consume up to 25 kilowatt-hours per month. Maintaining the sustainability of public debt. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, our public debt is assessed to be unsustainable, though at risk of high risk of distress. Mr. Speaker, I repeat, our public debt is assessed to be sustainable, though at a high risk of distress. The overall public debt to GDP ratio has dropped from 94 to 54% of GDP in 2024, and further down to 53.4% of GDP in 2023, following the rebasing of GDP. This notwithstanding, the ratio of debt service to revenue remain high and constitute the greatest challenge to fiscal management. Debt service to domestic revenue, which was about 50% in 2023, is projected to increase to 59% in 2025. The high debt service payments are also crowding out critical spending in agriculture, education, and health, and infrastructure, and other programs that should have directly benefited the poor and vulnerable people of our society.
Yes, Honorable Minister, please rest a little. Let me recognize some dignitaries that we have here. Use this period to recoup. Give him water. Honorable members, I at this stage recognize the presence of certain dignitaries that we have here this morning, beginning with Professor Alpha Tijanwuri, is he here? Presidential Advisor. Madam Geneva Bangura, Commissioner General, NRA. Mrs. Anne-Marie Harding, the Deputy Commissioner General. And the Principal Advisor to the Chairman, SODP.